All right. Take me through your journey.
All right. So yes, I will share my travels through Orthorexia land. I'm making light of it, but it really was a really tough lesson for me that stems all the way back to me in elementary school. And I took some notes here, so if it sounds like I'm reading or if I'm looking down, that's why I literally wrote my story out. So yeah, I've dealt with body image issues and dysmorphia since I was very young, probably about 3rd or 4th grade. It didn't manifest into, anything related to food, like restricting food or binging or, excess exercise or anything like that until later in life. But from a very young age, I was never like proud of my body or fully confident about my physical appearance. And I've shared this story many times on the podcast, I feel like, but I had a really tough conversation with my dad, or rather he had a conversation with me when I was very young and basically pointed out that, said the words like, you need to go on a diet. And I've always been like naturally like a muscular build and different than my sisters who were more like naturally very like wiry and skinny. I have my mom's body and she's thicker. She has thick limbs and muscular tone to her body and very athletic looking. And so the comparison really started very young, always aware of my very skinny friends and sisters through junior high and high school. I felt different because I wasn't naturally skinny. I never became overweight or obese, but just that naturally thicker, muscular, athletic build was something that I was always thinking about. And then I go through high school with this feeling, and then through college, and right about my senior year of dental hygiene school. So this was me about 20, 21, 22 years old, around there. We were recently engaged and I started prepping like so many women do for our wedding. I told myself, I want to look bomb. I want to look banging on my wedding day. I want to look back at these pictures and know that I did everything I could to be the size that I want. And that's what I did. I am a type 3 achiever and I achieved that with flying colors, not in a healthy or, particularly good way, but what this looked like was I downloaded the app MyFitnessPal, and they have a little like equation. They say, okay, what's your weight now? What weight do you want to be? And then they do this math where it's like, okay, so if you want to lose this much weight or be this size, be this weight, then you need to eat this amount of calories. So the calories that they prescribed to me was about 1,200 calories a day, which now what I know
just wild
is just the perfect equation to actually trash your metabolism, just to reduce calories and be in a constant deficit. That is a great way to trash your metabolism and actually end up doing more harm than good. Storing body fat, things like that. It's just not good. But I didn't know what I didn't know. So I started tracking every bite of food with MyFitnessPal, and I wasn't necessarily really strict yet with food. I wasn't like, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. It was more just like, I'm going to eat as healthy as I can, as healthy as what I think, and I'm just gonna limit it to this 1,200 calories. Well, I was also exercising basically every day during dental hygiene school. I would either go in the morning before or go after with my friends. And this looked like, 30 to 45 minutes of just straight running on the treadmill. And then it would be followed up by another 30 to 45 minutes of weight training, of resistance training. And I had no plan. I would literally go on Pinterest and look up arm workout, and I would do arms that day, or ab workout, and I would do abs, or leg, or whatever, or I would just rotate around the machines. There was no plan, there was no coherence. It was just
which is totally normal.
It's totally normal, and it's just part of the process of individuating and becoming a wise adult and figuring out how to actually move your body in an intelligent way. So this is where I was at. So it was about an hour and a half of working out every single day, as well as being very active at my dental hygiene school. You know, you're running around clinic. It's a very stressful environment, as you can imagine. And I was really striving to be top of my class and ace every test and pass with flying colors. And I was able to do that. But it really took a toll on my body, my stress levels, hormones, everything. I hadn't really gotten to the point yet where I was noticing like physical manifestations of symptoms or anything. I was just noticing like whatever I'm doing is working. So I better do it more and better.
I do remember you had like canker sores all over the inside of your mouth.
Yeah, I did. And that was just because probably a host of things, but I was very stressed, and they're usually stress induced for me, these sores inside my mouth. And then I was just in a very acidic state all the time. So yeah, the MyFitnessPal equation worked in that I lost a lot of weight, but I know that I lost a lot of muscle mass too, which is not good. I saw my body drastically changing, and I loved the comments that people were making, like, "Oh my God, girl, you look so good. I haven't seen you in forever. What are you doing? You look amazing." And that just was fuel to my fire to like keep doing what I was doing. But still on the inside, I was never fully 100% confident with my body. Even though I got to the size that I wanted, I was never fully confident because, again, it was externally based. It wasn't because of the love that I have for my body that I'm doing these things. It was because I literally didn't like my body. So I was doing these things. So we get married, we move to Seattle, we start adulting, which is also stressful. And there was less, with both of us working full time and commute, I was riding the bus to and from work, and then I would come home and make dinner, and there just wasn't as much time in my schedule to work out. So inevitably I worked out less. And then I combining that with, I stopped tracking my food. So I didn't really know how many calories I was, getting. And I created the story in my mind that I needed to cook like your mom, and I needed to make big meals with bread and ice cream and dessert and this and that. Like, I don't know where the story came from. It was completely from my own brain. So I started eating foods that I hadn't in years. And of course, my body started clinging to this extra influx of calories and then less working out. And so after the first year of marriage, I had gained probably about 20 to 25 pounds and felt absolutely miserable in my body. I felt just like the lowest I had ever felt about my body. I was like ashamed because I had gotten to that size for our wedding that I was actually like proud of. And I knew like, oh, I can be skinny. And then after a year of marriage, my body just hanging on to this and just absorbing it, it felt like a sponge. I did not feel sexy or confident. I had horrible inner dialogue with myself. I didn't even want to talk to you about it because I was just ashamed. And I of course it like impacted our intimacy and my confidence in that, and a whole host of things impacted our intimacy for sure, but that was certainly one of them. I just didn't even want to admit that I had gotten myself to this point. And then after about a year of marriage, we had this infamous lake talk where we were leaving Priest Lake, and I just broke down in the car as we're leaving the lake, and I just was like, I can't do this anymore, and I'm just not happy. And I just like let the floodgates open, and you just received this vomiting, this projectile vomiting of my feelings of self-hatred over the last year. And I don't even know what I said or how it came out. I just knew that I finally told you that I was like not happy with my body and me, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. I was very scared and concerned, and I felt so bad, and I had no clue. Like, I was literally blown away when you were like, I gained weight. I'm like, I haven't even noticed it.
Which is so crazy because you could look at the side-by-side pictures, and it's a drastic change.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I
obviously it speaks to the fact that you just love me.
You've done that where you've shown me the pictures and I'm like, oh, I guess, yes, you're right. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
But I've always just loved you.
Yeah.
I mean, again, loved you so much. And I was in my own sort of like hell. My first year of my career was on the road all the time. Seeing you felt like, just medicine every time. So I wasn't like tracking your weight.
Yeah, no, I know. And obviously I'm grateful for that. You know, that's the ideal, but
it's a pivotal moment in my journey too, which I'll get to. Yeah. That sort of, from there, we made a radical shift in the way that we ate food.
Yeah. And so I switched, I flipped the switch again, and I became obsessed. In my mind, skinny meant healthy. So I just needed to get skinny again. And we both became obsessive. And I think, there were so many things that we were doing wrong, but we could also feel like things within our relationship at this time, like drifting apart and not having a deep spiritual connection. Exercise and very strict eating gave us both like a sense of control over our life. Mm-hmm. And that maybe if we were happier with our external, appearance, that somehow our life and relationship would also get better magically. Like there was no like conscious thought going into this. It was all subconscious and unconscious programming and stories and all of that. But we did both sort of navigate this in the same way, and it was really, really dysfunctional.
Well, and I was on the road, so I was gone 4 or 5 days a week, which anybody who has neurotic tendencies, when nobody's watching you and you don't have that social pressure, you get like free reign on how crazy you can be. Yeah. And so I was doing the same thing on the road. I was hyper focused on my food and making sure that I was exercising like every day. Mm-hmm. Just making sure, because I was going out to eat with clients and staying up late and drinking, that I was working it all off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was the same. And I look back now and I was so undernourished, so under protein, like it's just laughable, but this is where we were at. So you guys know our story. We separated and divorced in 2016. And after this, things got even worse for me, because now my inner dialogue is not only just associated with my physical appearance, but also my emotional state and how I carried myself through our marriage and how I handled the separation and divorce. Like, it was weighing on me, but I was not allowing myself to go there. So now I had the stresses of the external, physical validation that I was seeking, but also the dumpster fire that was my emotional and mental and spiritual state. And then this is when, up until this point, I really didn't see much like physically manifest in symptoms. And because the body is resilient, and it can go for a while on low calories, low protein, and it can get by. But for me, I got to this point where my body was screaming at me to make a change, and I just ignored it, because I liked how I was looking and feeling and, fitting into my clothes and stuff. And so at this point, I really started to notice physical manifestations, physical symptoms that I was not okay with. My hair was falling out in clumps. I had a rash on half my body. I had cystic acne for the first time in my life. I was one of those annoying girls in high school that never had a zit and like knew nothing about washing my face or anything. And then get to, being a young adult or in my, 20s. And now I have these like painful cystic acne. I couldn't digest any of my food, extremely low stomach acid. I had fainting spells. I had a self-induced hypothyroidism. So this is when everything kind of came to a head. And my identity at this point was so enmeshed with my healthy habits and cutting out foods that I thought would hinder my progress. So it was easily, I was cutting out foods right and left. And I would then tell myself and even tell other people out loud, oh, I'm not a person who eats bread. I'm not a person who eats sugar. I'm not a person who eats dessert. So it was like enmeshed with my identity. I was in such a restrictive state all the time that this is so weird to observe in yourself. I was so restricted, so under calories, so undernourished for 99% of the time that sometimes I would have like, there would be like a glitch in the matrix where, working at a dental office, people bring in cookies and candy and cupcakes and treats all the time, weirdly, at a dentist office.
Yeah,
it
I
happens
know.
all the
Crazy.
time. Same in like other medical providers' offices or whatever. So this stuff would be around all the time in like the break room. And so I'd go back there for a little sip of water or whatever. And once in a while, nobody would be in there and I would sneak. I would like rush. I would like take a cookie and like just shove it in my mouth and like go in the bathroom and just enjoy the experience by myself. But I wouldn't let anyone else see what I was doing because I had this identity, this persona to uphold to my coworkers and friends and family that I was the healthy girl.
Yeah.
I wasn't the girl that ate sugar. So I was like sneaking this. It was so bizarre. And I can't tell you what was going on in my mind. It was just like a break in my judgment at the time. And really, really interesting to look back on. But
yeah, there's a lot there, psychologically.
Yes.
And when you've tabooed something, and this is across the board. If you taboo things in life at large, when you engage with that taboo and nobody's looking, you experience weird pleasure from it.
Yeah, but it's very short-lived.
It's short-lived. You've dammed something up, and that the dam has no open gates. And so when you open one gate, it's going to blow it open because you've been literally not allowing any relief for so long.
Yeah.
It's just too much for one moment to be able to handle from how much you've been keeping dammed up.
Yeah, exactly. And that it's kind of scary, honestly. But yeah, so you feel that initial pleasure, but then it's followed by guilt and shame and even worse inner dialogue. Like, you're so weak. You can't even say no, or, this just hatred of self perpetuates. So at this time, all these physical manifestations started to manifest, and I knew that something was wrong, but I wasn't yet fully taking ownership of my experience. I just thought, well, something's wrong with me. I better go to a naturopathic doctor to figure it out. I knew enough at this point that like mainstream medicine was not going to be able to help me. So I got a recommendation for a naturopath and went and had blood work done and food sensitivity test. And she had me like track my food and she wanted to see like what I was eating on a day-to-day basis. And she tried her best to help me, but I was not in a state, like I said, I was not in a position yet where I was willing to take full ownership of what I was doing to myself. So she would give me advice to like, girl, you just need to like, chill and like eat a sandwich. It's okay. And I would be like, that's not my problem. I would be like sassy about it and just was not willing to like really hear her. But of course, she was right. The feeling of just chill. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. But one of the appointments that I had with her, she said something to me that really stuck. And she was looking at my blood work and my hormone levels, which I had basically zero estrogen, like zero. And she asked me, do you want to have kids someday? And at the time I was just like, yeah, of course. I didn't realize that what she was saying was that currently, if you wanted to have kids right now, you probably wouldn't be able to. You are having self-induced fertility issues based on what I'm looking at with your hormones. And I was just like, yeah, someday. And I wasn't picking up. She was very kind and she didn't just like blatantly spell it out for me. She was just like, okay. But that's what she was saying is like, currently you are infertile. So here's the thing with all of this. I thought what I was doing was healthy. I didn't know that fasting every day for a year was not healthy, because I had heard someone talk about how great fasting is for the body. I thought everything that I was doing was healthy. And obviously they weren't, because we know that the body doesn't lie. The body's always reflecting back to us how well we are being God to it. But I still was in this position where I was not ready to assume responsibility. Finally, we're rounding third here. Finally, I'll never forget the day that I really woke up, and I was in the shower and washing my hair, and another huge clump of hair fell out in my hand, and I just crumpled to the floor and told myself, I have to figure this out. No one is going to figure this out for me. The abs are not worth it. And I knew that I had to change basically everything in my life if I wanted to feel better. And I had this internal knowing that everything has to change. And it did over the course of the next few years. But at this point, I knew I had to rewrite the stories that I was telling myself about my body, about my worth, my idea of health, everything. And this was the major turning point where I had to swallow any pride and admit that I was a fit, sick person. Not that I was using that language back then, but I had to admit that I knew nothing about real holistic health. And my intentions up until that point being aesthetic only, they had to change, or else I might not, be able to have kids, or this might affect me long term in a way that I have no idea. So it was a major pivotal point, and I'll stop there. But that was basically my point where I was like, I have to change. I have to figure this out.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.